Hello, dear Ioana, dear Stefana, thank you for agreeing to record this video in the series of podcasts in our cost action. It's basically about your mobility, your STSM. So I would try to kindly ask you to give me or to give us more details about the objectives, the scope, the methodology, and what have you found or what's basically the entire research about. And I would start with Ioana. Ioana, please give us a few details about the objectives, the scope of your research.
Thank you very much, Vasile, for the invitation. The scope of the STSM was to structure the research topic, to discuss the methodology and extend the database regarding evaluating sustainability goals at European level from a spatial perspective using taxpayers' perception and sentiment analysis. In this purpose, we came up to the research question if there are any differences between what people really feel, their sentiment regarding EU institutions, and the trust that countries report to the European Union. We have identified the hypothesis referring to the need to assess people's confidence on the European institutions using their own perception and sentiment analysis. We identified two main objectives. Analyzing people's open responses when asked what they think about the social United Nations sustainability goals, and assessing the relation between United Nations sustainability goals as proxied by the confidence in the European institutions and people's.
Thank you, Ioana, for giving this introduction to the research that you've conducted. And since you've already mentioned different data sources, different data, I would kindly ask you to give us a few more details about what data have you used, and also you mentioned collecting data. So what was the questionnaire all about? So what topics have you included, like specific questions and so on?
Yes, this study was a continuation of a previous study we made last year, also in an STSM. We measured people's opinions, evaluating their trust in national public institutions, and we extended the questionnaire with questions regarding people's opinion on European Union institutions. So we extended the questionnaire with at least two questions referring to how do you evaluate your level of trust in European institutions and what do you think of European institutions. So this will be an open-ended question asking people open answers. So they they could answer open, freely, free text. Then regarding the questionnaire, we gathered qualitative data on people's opinions regarding the variables measured. And this type of data we also correlated with text data that we gathered through open-ended questions, also through this questionnaire. And we evaluated also their personal values and regarding principles like transparency, predictability, efficiency, social activities, and other types of activities. We sent this questionnaire to COST members, and not only COST members, to all colleagues that are in the European countries, because we want to gather a threshold of a minimum, let's say, 300 answers we need from each country so that we have a balanced data.
One second, I was muted. So thank you, Ioana, for these details. And I would now go to Stefana. So you've collected this data. And what methodologies, what techniques you applied, or you are planning to apply in order to reach the goals that were previously described by Ioana?
Yeah. So in order to accomplish these objectives, we've designed the methodology during this STSM and split it into two main sections. First, we want to do the sentiment analysis and then the spatial analysis. The scope of the sentiment analysis is basically to identify which is the most suitable model to predict the sentiment from the answers the respondents will give to the open-ended questions that Ioana mentioned, and to analyze the sentiment values attained by fitting this model into our data set, so on all variables that we will eventually have. And the scope of the spatial analysis phase is to assess the sentiment as expressed by people, via the confidence in the European institutions that was basically reported by Eurostat. And in this phase, we also aim to evaluate how people's values, the ones that Ioana just mentioned, contribute to their level of trust and people's opinion of each public service stipulated in our questionnaire. So basically, using the initial answers to our questionnaire, the one we previously designed, we managed to already write the code for the methodology so that we will be able to reproduce all of these steps once we have the answers to the newest questionnaire.
Thank you, Stefana, for these details. So basically, you've already mentioned two important aspects that you have included in the two sections of your methodology. First, sentiment analysis, and then you went to this spatial analysis. So I kindly ask you to give, I know we're not trying to make it too technical, but if you could deep dive a little bit into the sentiment analysis and give us more details about how you apply it, what's it all about in your project, I think that would be useful for our listeners.
Of course. So sentiment analysis, it's also called opinion mining, and it's basically a natural language processing method that is used to determine whether a piece of text, it could be represented by a short review or by an entire text document. And we're trying to determine whether this text is positive, negative, or neutral at its base. We applied it in this study because we first wanted to do an exploratory analysis on the people's answers to the open-ended questions. We pre-processed this corpora, so we had to, for example, remove the stop words. We had to split the text into words. They are called tokens in the language of speciality over here. And we analyze different word frequencies, topic preferences that people would have on different matters of the analyzed corpora. The second step in our sentiment analysis phase was to determine different predictors. So there are models trained on predicting the sentiment of a piece of text. So this is exactly what we did. We used different models. It's either we used lexicon-based models. These are vast dictionaries that help to predict the sentiments. They are sometimes on a scale between -1 and 1, -1 being the most negative and 1 being the most positive, 0 being neutral, or they can be on a scale from -5 to 5. So we use different lexicons, and we also used machine learning models, some based on deep learning, for example, Google's BERT, BERT coming from bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. So this is more a more novel technique. And we use different predictors, and we simply gave scores for each person's response to our open-ended questions.
Thank you, Stefan. I think it's quite clear. And now go further to the spatial analysis. So after you've evaluated, you've assigned you gave these scores to the opinions offered by the respondents. What have you done next?
Yeah, this is the interesting part, in my opinion, because this is also my area of expertise and of interest. So once we have the scores and we have the other variables, the quantitative variables as expressed by people giving scores to, I don't know, different public institutions or to different values, we took all this data, we cleaned it, we geolocated it in terms of country of residence, geolocation meaning that we gave it a position on the map. Yeah, for each possible answer, we computed the means. And then we joined this database with what we have from Eurostat. Yeah, what the measure of confidence in the European institutions we have from Eurostat. And with this huge database, we performed some spatial exploratory data analysis phase. For example, we did global and local spatial autocorrelation tests. So we try to test whether the data is spatially clustered or spatially dispersed to see whether it makes sense to apply spatial regression analysis, for example, on top of our data set. And we found some clustering tendencies that were significant in our statistical tests. So we went forward. We also analyzed some quantile maps. So we split the data into quantiles, and then we mapped these quantiles, whether either 3, 4, or 5 quantiles, to identify different hot spots of values or cold spots of values. And then we simply search for the best spatial model to assess these interdependencies, yeah, to give us more insight into our data set, yeah, into the factors and the spatial influences between the variables. So we took the attitude towards the national institutions, this measure that we had from the initial questionnaire, and then we compute different regression and spatial regression analysis, and we searched for the best spatial model to use. Once we had this model, we managed to apply it on and to fit it on our data set, assimilated by the answers we had from the initial data set. And once we'll get satisfactory representativity that is satisfactory for us for the responses in the nuanced data set, we will be able to apply this model that we found as being most fitted to the final data set, and to basically analyze the spatial effects, the direct and indirect effects that our variables have on the confidence in the European institutions.
Thank you, Stefana, for these details. Sounds very interesting. And before closing, I would go further and ask both of you, maybe what's next? So you've started with the questionnaire, gathered data, went further with the methodology for assigning the scores for the unstructured data. You plan to do, or you've done the geospatial analysis. And what's next? What's coming next for your research?
Next will be to write a research paper. This is was our initial target, and to publish it in a high-ranked journal. And to achieve this, we need a balanced data set. So the most challenging part will be to get enough data from each European member state in order to achieve the threshold we set, in order to have this condition answered. So this will be the most challenging part, gathering all the data. And what we want to go next is to promote this survey in the European, in our cost network, and to motivate our colleagues answer and help us gathering the data by all kinds of means, and also send this survey to European institutions and get their help in gathering the data. So this is our next steps.
Yeah, and maybe from a techie perspective, we also prepared a GitHub repo that we aim to make public alongside with the data set. We have worked with some Jupyter notebooks that we want to parameterize and to allow people to run the same analysis whenever more answers pop up in our questionnaire. Yeah.
Okay, so
But first, it's going to be, I mean, the most difficult part will still be the reaching the satisfactory number of answers from each country of interest.
okay, so thank you both of you. It sounds very interesting. The replicability part of your analysis, it also sounds very interesting. And good luck with collecting data and definitely leveraging on the wide and of the size of our cost action network would be one of the things, one of the directions to move forward. And I just wait to record another one when you met the thresholds you've set and you have enough data to produce the analysis and show us some maps regarding opinions about and trust in institutions. So thank you again for taking this time to record this video, and it's going to be online on our website, so our colleagues will be able to see it and understand why they would need to help you and motivate other colleagues of them to donate some time for science. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.